So I want to ask you about if there's been any buzz in the building or anything that you've heard with Darnell Wright. I heard Thayer on with Cap and I think it was Cap and Jay heard. I forget. Maybe it was Carmen Yurko, where he was talking about the aggression that he was playing with, and it's different. And a lot of people say that was the best game Darnell Wright has played, maybe as a Bear. Do you think they've gotten in his ear, or like a message has been received by him? This was coming off an injury, and we saw him play with more of a purpose than we've seen him play with. Is this something where this is now paying dividends?
I mean, I think that Dan Roushar has been honest with him since the start. I mean, we heard about what he said to him and kind of just the message that, your motor is it trickles down. It trickles whatever. Like, it goes away in games when you get tired.
All right, let's talk about this team right here. Are you sick of the Troy Aikman discussion yet?
So, I'll be honest. When I'm at the game and I'm listening to Joniak and Thayer.
Right.
So, I didn't notice it until afterwards. And I did listen back to the perceived criticisms about, and Caleb was pretty honest yesterday too, and Declan Doyle talked about it, like throwing guys open in a place where you're going to give them more yak opportunities. That's something he has to do. So I didn't think that was a slight, but I was a little surprised what people were so up in arms about over the whole thing. I really didn't get it. Like, am I missing something? Was he really that?
We like to be offended, and we like to be outraged. We just do. That's who we are, especially with Twitter.
When I first heard Ben, and then I saw the hashtag that Caleb put. So when Ben said this with Joniak, he was talking about watching the second half, and his kids were watching it. And Waddle even pointed out about that it was a good play call to DeAndre Swift. I think Ben's a red ass.
Sure.
And I like that.
He's going to find anything he can.
Yes.
Anybody says to use his motivation.
And like the play on DeAndre Swift for the touchdown, right away, Troy Aikman said that was the Bears got lucky there.
Because
they missed the tackle.
Because DJ pushed Marshawn Lattimore into Quan Martin. That's a pick play.
Yeah.
I get it. Like, here's the thing that, like, the only thing out of this that stuck out to me, not Troy's comments or anything like that. And I know the Bears can think whatever they want to. You have to go and earn respect. You won 3 games in a row. You're 3-2. Like, let's not act like they've arrived or anything else. And I think that they have that mentality, which is good. Like, what is bizarre to me, and Orlovsky brought this up this morning on Unsportsman, like, I have this in my story, it's up at .com. Like, Caleb did not meet with the broadcast crew in either Week 1 or Week 6 on Monday Night Football, and a source that I talked to who's in those meetings said it is incredibly rare that starting quarterbacks don't meet that. Like, that just doesn't happen. It happened twice now. Like, I don't think that Aikman did this as like, oh, well, you stood us up, you're too good for us. Like,
but I'm sure he said that, and don't you, like, you know how people are. And, Mahomes sits down with me.
Sure.
Dak sits down with me.
I think there's a lesson here that, like, find time. It's really not that difficult. And the teams are the ones that usually set the time. Hey, this is when the call's happening. I just find it oddly bizarre that 2 times in the first 6 weeks of the season they couldn't find any time.
Somebody in the building here, without irritating somebody, should have also been part of that. Hey, listen, we need to make sure.
This is Monday Night Football.
I just think that there is, and I'm not at all saying anything about any other network or any other time slot. It's the NFL. There's, only so many of these games a week. You make time.
What did Orlovsky say?
He said it's very odd that he didn't in the first two meetings on Monday Night Football that he didn't find any time to be able to do this.
I remember this, Waddle. You know this too with Jay, with the relationship that we had with Jay. Jay irked some of the broadcasters. You know how these guys are, that whether it's conscious or even just subconscious, where he walks in and he's not really engaged. And he's sitting down with his head down here, and like one of the analysts is talking to him. He's like, and not giving these. He's not engaged with the conversation.
Wasn't a willing participant.
Yes, and then these guys get offended, and it causes more criticism down the road. That guy thinks his blank.
The one thing I would say about that though is you can cut this all off at the pass by actually
being a part of the meeting. But, I mean, like, he's not the first analyst who has gotten criticism for his perception of Caleb or how he's describing what he's seeing with Caleb. Remember Kirk Herbstreit in the Seattle game last year?
About work ethic.
Yeah. And people, like, people dragged him for that. He's getting that from production meetings. Let's call a spade a spade. You had an outgoing coaching staff who was ready to sing because they're trying to save their own asses on a lot of things.
You know what?
I don't think this is as big of a story as many people are making it to be, but I do think that there's some lessons within here of how to handle this like a professional on both sides.
Sure.
I think that's a fair way to look at
it. And honestly, the best way to rectify all of this is you win. I mean, seriously, they won 15 games in the last 4 years. And listen, some were irked that they felt like Troy was giving the Washington Commanders more respect. They went to the NFC title game last year, and their quarterback was the Rookie of the Year. So naturally, maybe Troy does have a feeling that they're a little further ahead of our team, and some people took it personal.
And if he the thing he said early on is like, Caleb's off tonight. Guys can be off in the first quarter and then turn it around in the fourth quarter. He did it. He led a game-winning drive in back-to-back games. That part can be acknowledged just as much. And I don't feel like I guess I just didn't see him going over the top. But I know that there were a lot of Bears fans. I saw it in my mentions and just talking with some of the guys on the beat that were getting text from people watching the game of how outraged they were about it. I
thought the criticism in the first half was valid because I didn't think Caleb played very well in the first half and played better in the second half. So I didn't hear the full commentary in the second half. But
one Twitter follower said, let's pull the curtain back on this. Let's just say that this story has lingered around because there's nothing intriguing to say about the Saints. And that we're just kind of – this isn't like the Bears against the Commanders or what it will be like against the Ravens next week if those guys come back.
I think it's lived a little longer than many people expected because the coach acknowledged it.
Unprompted. He's the one who started the story.
Correct.
Ben's the one who opened the door. Joniak didn't say, hey, what did you think of the commentary on the broadcast? He said that, in typical Joniak fashion, set it up very open-ended, let him go wherever he wanted to with it, and that's what he chose. He chose to put that there.
And that's where the red ass, characteristic comes in, and I don't say that negatively.
No, I love it.
And he's taken a page out of the Lovie Smith playbook by telling his team, I'm sure, and maybe they've moved on from it now, but look, there's still this feeling out there that you all aren't for real. Mm-hmm. So, just know that when you go out there, they're just waiting for you to lose. They don't think you're very good.
And it's timely because, remember, they weren't for real when they were 4-2 last year. If you win this week, are you a different 4-2 than you were a year ago?
That's a good point.
think that's a fair way to look at it.
Me too, because of the leader.
Yeah.
Because of the leader. Yeah. So I want to ask you about if there's been any buzz in the building or anything that you've heard with Darnell Wright. I heard Thayer on with I think it was Cap and Jay heard, I forget, maybe it was Carmen Yurko, where he was talking about the aggression that he was playing with. And it's different, and a lot of people say that was the best game Darnell Wright has played maybe as a Bear. Do you think they've gotten in his ear or a message has been received by him? This was coming off an injury, and we saw him play with more of a purpose than we've seen him play with. Is this something where this is now paying dividends?
I mean, I think that Dan Roushar has been honest with him since the start. I mean, we heard about what he said to him and kind of just the message that, your motor is it trickles down. It trickles whatever. It goes away in games when you get tired. And he said that during training camp. That was something that I thought was a really, he spoke through us to get the message to the player, but also it delivered that message to the player. And, I think this coaching staff is pushing the right buttons with him because for as athletic of a player as he is and as much of a unicorn as he is, both as a run blocker and in pass protection, he's played really well. Honestly, played better injured than he did the first 2 games of the season.
What do you think is more repeatable, their running game and how effective they were running it, or stopping the opponent's running game and playing better on defense?
I would say the running game, all-encompassing. So, DeAndre focusing on the Swift. So, he was just under 11 yards per touch last week, and that was the most of anybody, I think most of anybody in Week 6 all the way around. This is a team that's given up 18 scrimmage touchdowns, 18 touchdowns from scrimmage the season. So, I think it's an opportunity for Swift to get back out in space because – you saw what happened. He makes a guy miss, whether the guy misses on his own. I don't want to make sure I'm giving credit to the right place. If the guy misses on his own or you take him out and you give DeAndre a couple yards, he he's elusive in space. He's a shifty guy. And I think that that's where the Bears, whether it's on screens, whether it's lining him up in the backfield to catch passes from the backfield, more than just running the ball, because they're going to try, actually he was more successful against stacked boxes last week. More of his run production came when they didn't have a numbers advantage up front. So I think, given his health and obviously everything, because he's got that groin injury, I do think that the run game overall, like running backs in the passing game too, I include that in saying that that's probably more sustainable carrying that over week to week, because I think the interior of the offensive line played their best game together too. Like they're gelling.
The longer they play together, the more they'll know each other's tendencies, and it'll all work. Yeah. Speaking of groin injuries, what can you tell us about DJ Moore?
So he was upgraded to limited today.
Okay.
Which, it's a sensitive thing that the team isn't saying a whole ton about, but remember, yesterday they did not practice. They had a walkthrough, and that was about like 5:30, 6 p.m. that they went out there. So he was listed as DNP yesterday. Today he was actually out there getting some work done. So
good. That's good.
I would imagine, that's one that I guess you probably you monitor it as much as you can. And if he's good to go, I would imagine he'd be playing.
What do you think? And then the other groin is DeAndre Swift. So, and he was limited today. Does that mean? And he did not have a designation yesterday.
So they didn't practice yesterday. So I do wonder. It's like, all right, we think I don't know if this obviously popped up during. Didn't pop up during the game. Otherwise, he would have been on there yesterday.
Right. Like, did it happen in practice today? And that's why he was limited, because he started it.
Could be something too. I mean, soft tissue. He's dealt with the quad. There was one more injury he had earlier too, like after the Detroit game. And so I think he's played through this stuff before, though, where he's either popped up midweek with something or came into the week dealing with something lingering and been able to get through it. So for it to be limited and not him going, from like no designation to DNP, I think is a pretty good sign.
What about Austin Booker? He was full participant last week, but they did not activate him. Will they activate him this week?
I would think this would be a good opportunity, because eventually the 21-day window is going to close soon. I don't know exactly the date that happens, but when they activated him, he and Travis Homer have 21 days to get onto the 53-man roster, or you revert to IR for the rest of the season. So given how Dennis Allen rotated guys, and just like even like with their ends, like Dio kicking him inside last week, I think it's a good opportunity in some of these sub packages to get another fresh body in there, knowing that he's been healthy. You've had him now in practice for 4 days. You've had a chance to see kind of what he can do. Obviously, he had a really good preseason. This would be a good opportunity. It's just you're thinking numbers game. Who are you taking off the 53 to get him on?
Especially if you have two kickers, right? Because Cairo was DNP again today. Mm-hmm. So do you think it's going to be Moody
there's no reason to rush him back. And Moody reverted back to the practice squad. They have one more time to call him up. So, he's not on the active.
Okay.
The coaches have said that when healthy, Cairo's the guy, right? Yeah. What if Cairo misses a few more weeks and this cat starts kicking, 4 out of 4, 4 out of 4?
That's my thought, and I asked Hightower about this today, and he said it's not challenging when you think about it, because, they view Cairo as their guy. But, it's so different than if you had a position that has multiple players. I don't know, pick any position. Defensive end. If a defensive end fills in for somebody, this guy's in the practice squad, and you're like, wow, he's great. Whatever. You can get him onto you have an easier chance to get him onto the 53. You sign him to the 53. You keep him up there. If Jake Moody keeps practicing and keeps playing really well, and he's your practice squad kicker, I do think it's challenging at some point. Because if you're like, well, Cairo's still hurt, we like this guy, what are you going to do?
Someone will pluck him off the practice squad, too.
Eventually,
if he kicks well, because they know of the talent. Anything else that we need to get after?
I think that covers, what we've got here. I do think one thing that's interesting to what the challenge that presents itself here this week, I think Caleb can be an effective part of the run game. We know that the Saints have given up some big yardage, considerable yardage to quarterbacks in the run game, whether it was Drake May scrambling this past week. Obviously, Kyler Murray did some damage with his legs. I think this could be a good week for Caleb to get back to the scrambling stuff that he did week 1 when he had 58 yards against the Vikings, and that factoring into the overall can they continue on their success with the run game.
And that secondary is so undisciplined, and they're not very good. So if you get to that next level, you can turn a 5-yard gain into 20. Yeah, you're right.
All right, so we'll see you Sunday on stage at the Dr. Pepper patio.
It's been